Hi class, welcome back. As usual, my lecture is going to focus on items that are not explicitly or extensively discussed in the reading. All of this information should be useful both for your grantmaker presentation and for writing your grants throughout the semester. Make sure that you read my announcement to the class along with all of our class readings too. So first, I want to make a note about how grants are reviewed. You might be wondering, will everyone on a review board read my entire grant proposal? And the answer to that question is no. Um, Private foundations might read only the first few lines of your proposal and decide it isn't for them without delving into the whole project. This is why the hook is especially important, and the hook's what the book talks about in chapter 3. You want your funder to realize the impactfulness of your project, the credibility of your organization, and or the urgency of the problem that you address, all within the first page. So I have some related tips for you. Emphasize impacts, and impacts is plural here for a reason. One problem that grant makers can make is thinking too parochially about the problem that they're trying to solve. So Habijax, for example, might want a grant to help build 4 houses. If they say, we're going to help these 4 people, that's one impact. That's good, it's important, it's fine. But a more impactful grant will talk about how it's helping not only 4 people, but the issue of homelessness on a much broader scale. So you want to multiply impacts wherever you can. Um, I'd like us to look on pages 96 and 97 in our book, for example. And I'm going to ask if you see why the opening paragraph after is more effective than the opening paragraph before. I've actually transcribed these for us to discuss. So, opening paragraph before. This 4-year Advanced Technological Education ATE Resource Center proposal submitted by Springfield Technical Community College will create a structure for rapid development and refreshment of new information and communications technologies, ICT, academic content. You can already tell just by the way I'm reading this that it's such a mouthful. This is way more technical information. This might be perfect for an internal document for this organization, but it's way more than a grant maker needs to know. Picking back up at the next sentence, the National Center for Telecommunications Technologies, NCTT, will form or formalize, again, another distinction that you don't need, an ICT community of practice, an expanding group of academic professionals and industry experts who share a common goal. So here we're getting to the impact statement, but it's so diffuse. It's important that they mention that they share a common goal. That's a good way of mentioning how your mission and your grantmaker's mission dovetail with one another. But why should we care about expanding group of academic professionals? Why does it matter? The so what is missing. Then they show you a different example. This is the opening paragraph after from page 97. From its inception, the National Center for Telecommunications Technologies, NCTT, work has been grounded in one primary goal: to create a comprehensive and sustainable national education system for information communications technologies industry, and that goal remains the core mission of NCTT's proposed work. So I highlighted a few things for you to notice here. First, the active simple verb to create. This isn't a compound, complex sentence structure like we had in the before example. This part in yellow is also what I would call signposting. They tell us that they're going to talk about something important. This is our one primary goal, so that we know when we get there, it's emphasized. And then they further emphasize that with italics. I really recommend using active, simple sentence structure like this and using signposting in your first paragraph and really throughout your grant whenever you can. So in addition to the example on 96 and 97, I also am going to recommend that you guys on your own time look to page 102 and 103 for another example. The book puts these examples side by side and it says a little bit about them, but you can really go a long way by doing more of your own analysis here. I'm happy to talk to you about the comparisons, but I'm interested to see what you can glean by thinking about why the after is more impactful than the former. So returning back to the issue of reviewing grant proposals, will everyone on a review board read my entire grant proposal? I emphasized a different word in this same question. So while private foundations may not read your entire proposal, you guys might hear that government bodies have to read the entire thing. That does not mean that everybody on the review board is going to read every proposal that's submitted to them. In fact, they get a lot of proposals that just wouldn't be an effective use of time or resources. So what usually happens is they'll divvy up proposals to different readers on the review board. One person might get 30 to read, for example, and they'll come and report back to the group what the brightest stars in those 30 proposals were. And what that really means is you need to be, I'm going to go to the slide that answers the question. No, that means you have to be even more clear. You have to be so clear right away that if other people aren't reading your grant, but one person is trying to remember the major parts of the grant and report that back to the group, you're so clear that they're able to say, bing, bang, boom, these are the impacts. These are, the reasons why I think this is a reliable person or organization. Here are the outcomes that we expect. If it's so clear that somebody can remember it and they know you've done your due diligence, you have a better chance of being rewarded. So with that in mind, I have a related tip. Since we aspire towards clarity and concreteness, it's important to have other people read your drafts. Sometimes things seem clear to us because we know what we mean to say. And for those of you who have had me in class before, you might be familiar with this example I always use because it's funny but great and memorable. Stephen Dobbins, in his book Best Words, Best Order, talks about a creative writing workshop where one student passed out her paper and everyone else is laughing at it. And the student who passed out her short story is wondering, why are they laughing? This is a serious, somber short story. But the short story included the phrase, passed the butts from mouth to mouth. So the student who wrote the story had such a clear visual image in her head that she knew that those butts meant cigarettes. But to the other classmates who didn't have that same visual image in their head, pass the butts is funny. I tell all of my students in all of my classes, get outside readers to read things that you submit. This is still true at the professional level. If you become grant writers or you just write grants to fund your own research, you do not want to pass the butts. So remembering that you're trying to make this clear for an audience who might then in turn share it with other people down the road, having external readers is a great way to get feedback. Sometimes you can also get feedback directly from the people who are running the grant themselves. So at the National Science Foundation, they're happy to accept questions, for example, or you might see a request for proposals, also called an RFP, and they might tell you to get in touch if you're interested. If they ask specifically for a letter of inquiry, that's something we'll talk about in the next module. But if you can ask them questions, come up with some concrete and specific questions. Make sure that they're not already answered by the material on the website or the instructions for applying to the grant, and communicate very professionally. Making that first contact and making a good impression is another good way to build ethos and help your grant maker think that you would be a safe bet to give money to. Finally, our book discusses various things that you should look for as you analyze your grant maker, both for your presentation and in order to apply them for funding. So one of the sleuthing strategies you can use involves looking up your funder's 1099 tax form. I'm blocking it. Okay. 1099s are not elementary. They are dense tax return documents, but they are really useful. Every granting body has to file one of these, so you should be able to find one. They're public record, and it's just going to be an itemized list of everyone that they've given money to and how much money those organizations were given. This is really important if you're trying to apply to that grant maker or if you're just doing a presentation on it. So I want to just give you a tip here finally as a way to use those 1099s, because the book mentions them but doesn't necessarily say how you might use them. If your grant maker has funded projects that are similar to your own, and you notice this in your 1099, you can say, continuing the tradition that your organization has of funding projects like X and Y, my project allows us to Z. So building on the fact that they've already funded that. On the flip side, if they have not published, if they have not funded items in your area, and I mean area either geographically or ideologically, you could use that to your advantage too. Remembering that you always want to say things affirmatively and not negatively, you're always kind of massaging your grant maker's ego. You don't want to say, you've done great work, but you've completely forgotten to do this important thing. Instead, you want to say, you have done great work in X and Y area, and we can build on that momentum and expand into these heretofore underexplored waters. You might not use that same awkward phrasing. You'll be more specific with your own grants, but this is one way to use 1099s to work for you in writing your proposals. So after you complete your readings and view our lecture for today, I hope that you enjoy making and then viewing each other's GrantMaker presentations. Good luck. I look forward to watching them.